we have wisdom, so much wisdom within us. If we connect with the wisdom we have within us, they won't make money off us. The more disconnected we are in our lives, the more we're going to look outside for who we are, right? And we're going to be told, we leave it into the hands of other people to tell us who we are. And they can never tell us who we are. They will tell us this, you need to be this, you need to be that, you need to be that. The standard, the bar is forever changing. And so you have to look within yourself.
Hello, Dr. Tammy. Thank you for joining us today.
Really lovely to be here today. Thanks for having me.
I really enjoyed our pre-interview that, not surprisingly, we ended up talking for like an hour.
I know. I can talk a lot. I will try and be as focused as you need me to be today.
Let's start with a question I ask everybody. What is something that at some point felt impossible for you and now is your new normal?
Do you mean professionally or
Anything? Interpret as way you want it.
Yeah. Oh, that's a very big question, actually. So something that felt impossible that is my new normal. On a personal level, I would say it's very interesting because it might be something that we're talking about today. I would say is compassion, being compassionate to myself. Yeah, that was very, very foreign to me. Um, and when I, like in the past, it was very foreign to me, compassion. And now it's literally almost like my religion. Yeah.
It's like
It's,
full circle.
Yes, it's come full circle. Like it's become the foundation of everything that I do. The way that I interpret where I meet myself. I try to meet myself with compassion. There will be times when when there will still be parts of me that try to argue out of it. But it's become more non-debatable. Like, I think like I have a much stronger, compassionate side of me now that is able to help me manage my thought processes on my own. And if I can't manage it on my own, I can easily reason with someone else offering it to me. Because I think, compassion goes in, there's different angles of it. You being able to offer it to yourself, being able to receive it from other people, being able to give it to other people. I never struggled giving it to other people. I was a natural at that. But now I can offer it to myself and also take it from other people. I struggled more taking it from other people than I was able to give it to other people. And I think I enjoy more now giving it to other people that I can receive, give it, and I give it better to other people. So that's one thing that I would say. Yeah.
There's quite a bit for us to delve into with this. One question I had with this is, what about it felt unfamiliar or impossible?
It almost just felt like there wasn't a path, there wasn't a channel for it, on the inside. And I think as a psychologist now, of course, like, learning to give it to myself came from training, understanding compassion myself. And, I did a lot of courses on compassion. My background now is compassion focused therapy. And I think there just wasn't a template for it in my psyche.
Like it wasn't even a concept.
If it's almost trying to fit a triangle into a square. If you're trying to fit the wrong shape if you're trying to put a triangle into a square, it's not going to fit. Maybe a triangle will fit into a circle, only because I have a toddler now and he's got this little shape spot. No. So yeah, it's like trying to fit a triangle into it. There wasn't a template for it. There wasn't an inner template for it for me. I would quickly dismiss it if people gave it to me. Like, I'm a very independent person, sort of kind of, there were just too many parts of me that just were like, no, we can't do that. We can't do that. We can't accept that, you know? And so, yeah, that made it difficult just because there wasn't any in a template, and is in understanding that you now think, okay, we've got to create an inner template for it in order for us to be able to practice it. So a lot of work, a lot of sort of kind of tugging out, battle, fight, a lot of understanding, yeah, a lot of work. It took a lot of work. And I think this informs my practice as well. Now when I work with people and, they argue their way out of compassion, I can really meet people. I can understand, and also when I'm offering compassion to people, I'm aware of how difficult it can be for other people to receive it because I'm not alone. I, like many other people, didn't, if you don't have a template for it inside, it's just like, you'd be like, okay. When people give it to you, or you might sort of, depending on what's going on, you might be very reactive, or you might just sort of kind of, people won't even know that you have taken it. You just be like, "Mm." And I also know, um, I know my language of compassion. Sort of, some people might think they're offering you compassion, but they're dismissing you. So I know true compassion. I know who is inviting me into, I know what genuine compassion is. So yeah.
I'm sitting here nodding because I'm like, I can so
Mhm, mhm,
relate.
mhm,
Because for me, similar to you, it wasn't really a concept or a thing,
mhm,
or I think even one step further from there, I probably would see it as a weakness or
mhm,
as a
mhm.
bad thing.
Yeah.
Similar to what you said, like, oh, you're this like independent, strong
Mhm,
person. It's
mhm,
like
mhm.
I probably was in a place where I felt like I had something to prove,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
through being that kind, compassionate,
Mhm.
again, so similar to you, not towards others, easy,
Mm.
but when it comes towards self
Yeah.
or receiving it,
Mhm.
whoa.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
That was quite a journey.
Yeah.
Can you maybe explain what compassion is, and
Mhm.
in your experience, expertise, background, why have you found it's important?
Yeah. So let's start with what compassion is. So this is the definition that I use as a compassion focused therapy, and is what we use within this field of compassion focused therapy, which is a huge field. So compassion has two folds. And the way it's one definition, but I always break it down. So compassion is sensitivity to the suffering of sensitivity to suffering of self and others. So we start with self, right? And other people as well. And a commitment to alleviating that suffering, right? So that's the first part, is sensitivity to suffering, right? To self. So it starts with you. So it's not just sensitivity to any suffering, to self, right? Because we need to be able to connect with ourselves, sensitivity to the suffering of self and or others, and a commitment to alleviating it. So the first part is that sensitivity. The second part is commitment to alleviating it. So compassion isn't a feeling, right? It's both. It's an action as well, right? So you have to be sensitive to suffering, and then you have to commit to alleviating it. And I explained this to my client that, when we're talking about committing to alleviating suffering, there's three parts that I open up here. So there are suffering that we can easily fix. Someone comes to you and say, I'm going to be kicked out if I don't pay my rent. And now if you have money and you sort of, you want to offer compassion to this person, you can solve that problem for them. Okay, here is money, and what do you need? And you solve that. But some suffering can be, you lose someone and you can't fix that. You can't bring the debt back. And so if you're not fixing it, you are minimizing it. What can we do to minimize? right? And some problems you can't also minimize it. Like grief, you can't minimize grief. You just cannot minimize grief. There's nothing you can do to minimize grief. You have to hold space for grief. So that's the second part. You either solve it, you minimize it, or the last part of it is you don't make that pain worse. All right. So in the event of grief, there are so many things we can do to make our grief process worse, but there might be nothing we can do to solve it, because grief is almost lifelong for people. The pain of grief, the suffering around grief. In fact, life is grief, but like the grief of losing a person, which I know, and I'm going through that, at the moment, is lifelong. You will feel the pain for as long as you love that person, for as long as that person shows up in your life, you will feel that pain. But there are things you can do to not make it worse, right? Now, I didn't talk about the first part and explaining the sensitivity to suffering. Why do you have to be sensitive to suffering? That's also can be a foreign thing for a lot of people. But here is the thing. Suffering, pain is just hard. It's just difficult, right? And however you find yourself in suffering, however, like whatever path took you to that, you're not bringing that onto yourself, right? No one says, my life is so great, make me feel this pain. Even if you feel as though I have contributed to getting myself here, that's fine. Yes, you have. Maybe there are things you could have done to prevent it. But if you are inside that suffering, right, you still haven't asked for that pain, because no one, I'm yet to see someone who says, life is great, give me grief. Life is great, give me pain. Life is great. So when we're in it, when we're already in it, right? Somehow we don't deserve to continue to be in it, because it's not cool.
Yeah.
Right? And what many people, what trauma, it's often trauma that makes us think, I deserve this pain. You don't know me. You don't know me. I deserve this. And we can't argue with that. I don't argue with people around like, you deserve pain, you deserve suffering, you deserve whatever people are saying they deserve. That is trauma. Because when we aren't in regulation, that's our pain talking. When we're calm and connected to who we are, to ourself, to our source, we don't say, no, I deserve pain. I deserve to have bad things happen to me. I'm a bad person. We don't come from that place of connection, from that place of safeness to say those things. So I have to explain to people that the place that your mind is at right now, you're in a place of dysregulation. You're in a place of pain where your mind isn't designed to be in this place forever. So when you are in this space, this sort of kind of like when your nervous system is regulated, when you can sort of kind of connect that, when our nervous system is regulated and, our vagus nerve is activated, which is sort of kind of where we are, like when we're connected to ourselves, when we sort of kind of like, there's no threat. We won't have those type of thoughts. We connect inside, we connect outside. We won't be saying those things. So the only reason we say, I deserve pain, I deserve this, you don't know me, you don't know my past, you don't know what I've done, that's still part of our pain talking. When we talk from pain, that's when we think we deserve pain. That's when we think we deserve suffering. We can't see a way out of it. And in a way, for a lot of people, there's a function to that. That's also a way, it's a survival mechanism. Like if I accept it, I can control it, all type of sort of kind of belief pattern. It's not going to hurt as much, If I judge myself, other people won't judge me. Whatever belief we attach to those type of difficult thoughts, negative beliefs about ourselves. It's a protective mechanism. We're outside of our connectedness. So compassion, of course, recognizes that suffering deserves sensitivity, no matter who you are. as a human animal, when you see someone in suffering, and that's who we are, like, as human, when we see other people in suffering, we're sensitive to their pain. We're moved by it. We don't go, oh, look at them, like they deserve that, or, and we do, sometimes, some people might gloat and all of that. Again, sort of, it says something about their state of mind. But when we're connected, when we're not, when we're regulated, we're moved by pain. That's who we are as human beings. That's how humans function. It's only when we're threatened by other people that we can say, like, yep, I'm in my sort of kind of like high horsepower and all of that. And, those people are there. I'm here and I'm enjoying this power. That's anybody sort of kind of like in that sort of kind of power mode is still feeling unsafe because, they are in sort of kind of like that place of survival.
With the what you said about the pain talking, how can people listening identify whether it's them talking versus their pain talking? Are there ways to distinguish?
Are there ways to distinguish whether it's their pain talking or whether it's them talking? I think if you question, what's the motive
Mm.
behind this? If you didn't think about it this way, what would your fear be? There's no fear underneath that particular point of view, then, you're connected. If I don't think about this, like then, you know, um, I'll be less powerful. The people, you're just, there is a fear underneath it.
It's interesting that that connection, there's something in that connection that once you're connected or you're just being,
Mm.
there's less of that chatter going
Mhm.
on, or less of
Mhm.
that explaining,
Mhm.
justifying,
Mhm.
reasoning.
Mhm.
Um, what are some of the things that you might have seen that are getting in a way of being there?
Of being in that sort of kind of place of connection.
Yeah.
Yeah. Safeness. People not
Mm.
feeling safe. When we feel safe, we know. We know physiologically, right? It's a different state of mind. We're more curious. We're less judgmental. We're more curious. We want to know. Um, we're calm. Um, we're playful. We're grounded. It's on a scientific level, on a nervous system point of view. Um, your nervous system is you activate more of your vagus nerve, sort of kind of like where you're connected, and if you've never been there, you might not know, but it doesn't mean you can't get there. But if you've been there, you will know. You will know.
How to I'm curious how to get there where, let's say, and it's partly probably related to regulating yourself as well,
Mhm.
that if all you are familiar with is stress, anxiety,
Mhm.
the negatives like low
Mhm.
self-esteem,
Mhm.
or we can list a bunch of things. How
Yes.
to Because I think I have experienced it myself, and probably in many areas I still go through that, where it's like, this is good for you,
Mhm.
but it's so unfamiliar. I would
Mhm.
literally catch myself wanting to, in some ways, distract myself from the
Mhm.
peace, from the
Yeah.
presence, and
Yes.
I'm able to identify that it's like a part of me, which I assume you might even touch on, internal family systems, that is playing role there where I can give it space. But it's so interesting that there was a time that I wasn't aware of it, and
Mhm.
I would be really frustrated about it,
Mhm.
where I'll be like, why can't I just do what's actually, I know
Yeah.
it's good for me, but it's so
Yeah.
unfamiliar.
Yes.
How to navigate that shift, because it's,
Mhm.
in theory, cool, awesome, but like when it
Mhm.
comes to the practice, it's so
Mhm.
messy. It's so
Yeah, yeah, I know, and you know what? We have to acknowledge that. And the other part of it is we've not talked about, the other spectrum. We talk about sort of kind of the fear part of it. The when you don't feel safe, when you feel threatened, but there can be times when you actually, you're not necessarily like unsafe. You're not threatened. It's not anxiety. It can be, you can have like extreme high, like extreme joy. And I'm thinking about you
Mm.
as a sports psychologist. I'm thinking about in sports, like, achievement, like dopamine activation. So it's not just our sympathetic nervous system where like, there's like like a lion, chasing us. There is the other part, because before I embarked on my own healing journey, I was more on the high type side. Natural drug. I always say I'm a natural drug. Happiness was my medicine. I made everything about laughter, to my own detriment. It was fun, you know, in a lot of ways. I just chased things that made me happy, as well as sort of achievement. I was very focused, um, I was studying. I loved to get good grades, even as a teenager. Like, I love to get good grades. I loved a good competition. I would compete with the boys, on good grades, and, kind of like just feel good when I can beat them.
But you felt good only when you beat them.
Yeah, yeah, I felt good
Oh.
when I beat, yeah, I felt good.
It's so
And also
interesting
when,
because, like, even like with this competitive stuff, for me, really similar. I actually didn't know
hmm
I was competitive
yeah,
until I played now basketball after 10 years because
yeah,
back then I thought, oh, competitiveness is for these like boys who try to
hmm
prove something and their
hmm hmm
egos.
yeah,
Um, but also for me with the good marks, I felt like my perspective was that it wasn't even to prove anything or anything like that, or it was like a bit different energy where I felt like I have to do that so that I'm good enough.
hmm yes,
It's just
yeah,
like that's my baseline. That's where I need to
yeah,
get
that
so
was,
that I'm
yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah. That's what my sense of self is connected to. You're right. I didn't know. I wouldn't have said like, I'm a perfectionist, because I wasn't necessarily a classic perfectionist type person. I was keeping shame off the loop. I was keeping
mm,
shame. I didn't, I can tell you now because I know myself enough. But
yeah,
I was keeping shame out of the background. And when things, like I was competitive, not just academically. I mean, I was in academia for 28 years of my life, straight up. Right. And it wasn't just academically, it was in everything else that I did. Like I would want to outdo, like, even sort of like, like I remember as a teenager, one of four girls that, I would want to, outdo things around my appearance, my hair, in the most subtle ways. It wasn't anything. There was never anywhere in which it hurt me. Like I didn't get into cosmetic surgery or anything like that. But I also sort of started dieting early, and I would fast, right? In the most not anorexic way, but a disordered eating way, because, like I could
unhealthy.
do it. I can do it. So it wasn't a lot in different aspects. I wasn't a sporty person. I didn't pursue sport, but I do know that like that was because my parent didn't encourage it. Because if I had sort of kind of gotten into something, I had that head space, and that mindset would have been really good for any form of sport. I watched sport, but because I had an injury, an accident when I was 3, and my mom was just completely
Worried about
put
it.
off it. Yeah, she was really, it really it created a lot of stress for my mom. So no bicycle, no sports, don't do any, she didn't encourage that. So the mindset would have been really, really great for sport, but it went into everything, even even in my interpersonal relationship,
Mm,
right? Like winning arguments,
yeah.
like not getting in trouble. I had crafty ways. Like I would get my sister in trouble. I would
Oh,
defend the indefense. I was very crafty. I had the, the intelligence of it. I didn't want to get into trouble. I was just keeping shame out of the way, right? Because my
yeah.
sense of self was in sort of being accepted, doing well, and of course, my parent loved me doing well. My mom especially. It fed into sort of my mom's own trauma that she was fighting. She was able to be, even more so proud of me, like, boast about me, all these things now, like you sort of kind of start to see full circle. right? So yeah, like that competitiveness, my dopamine high. But I didn't know it, like because like I wasn't getting any national award, but I was not failing. But when failure came, that was hard. That was really hard. And I think my first failure I experienced, I think, age 15. So there was this national exam that I failed. Whew. And some people passed, and people that I, like my pride, like, she passed and you didn't, like that was hard. I remember that was really like, I literally thought I was going to die.
I know the feeling.
Yeah. I couldn't, it was shame. It was absolute shame. No one could console me. Even my mom was like, where's this come from? Like, so you do it again, like they weren't going to kill me. Nobody was going to kill me, but I didn't exist to me.
Yeah, it's so interesting. Like for me, one thing that I realized about, and I think it's really interesting how we react differently to shame. In my
Mm-hmm,
case, if there was any possibility that I
mm-hmm,
might be not as good as the other person or I might not
mm-hmm,
win, I wouldn't even enter the thing. And
mm-hmm,
I remember I even like with basketball, I started when I was like 10, 12 years old. I would wake up
mm-hmm,
at 5 a.m. I would do workouts every single day throughout
mm-hmm,
the year. I would make
mm-hmm.
my own programs. I got so good that I would play all game without any breaks and I didn't get
Yeah.
tired. And I still was like, I'm not good enough. I'm slow. I'm
Mm-hmm,
this. And
mm-hmm,
and I got to the tryouts for national team.
mm-hmm,
And what happened was, looking back, I know I could have gotten in,
mm-hmm,
but I was like, well, I'm not good enough. What's the point of trying anyways?
mm-hmm,
I didn't
mm-hmm.
even try because I
Yeah.
had this preconceived like
Mm-hmm,
thought that I
mm-hmm,
won't get in anyways. I'm not good
mm-hmm.
enough.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
and it's so interesting looking back and
Yeah.
seeing how in school, I
Mm-hmm,
got to the best high school in Latvia.
mm-hmm,
And even before that, pretty much like all years in my class, highest marks in the class. But for me, we had the grading system from 1 to 10. And if
mm-hmm,
it was anything below like 7 was acceptable.
mm-hmm,
8 is like, okay, that's it. 8 and up is like, okay, that's
mm-hmm,
fine.
mm-hmm,
For most people, they're like, as long as I get 5, like that's
mm-hmm,
I'm good. For me, it was like only the highest that is acceptable. Anything below
mm-hmm,
that, I would be like, I'm a failure. Like,
mm-hmm,
and I remember the first you have failed when you have 3. And there was one time when we were doing a test, and me and my
mm-hmm,
friend we were joking around, and the teacher she came to us and she took our tests and she was like, both of you get 4. Oh my gosh. I was so stressed. I had never had anything in all the years below maybe 6, and 6 in
mm-hmm,
my mind was terrible.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
And it's so, and I know that all of this, even initially with the basketball and putting in extra work, it wasn't because I believed I can do it. It was just
mm-hmm,
like 5 a.m. was because I was so insecure
mm-hmm,
about the way I looked when I was running that I was like, well, at 5 a.m., there's very little people, so I won't be seen.
mm-hmm,
It's dark. That's a
mm-hmm,
win.
mm-hmm,
So I would just go at 5 a.m. It
mm-hmm,
wasn't like, oh,
mm-hmm,
5 a.m. club. It wasn't that thing back then.
mm-hmm,
And it's so interesting how, in some way, shame can help you.
mm-hmm,
Like it can help. It has some purpose in me for me to get some performance, and I got to
mm-hmm,
really good levels of performance. But then it comes to the time where it can't really help you further, and also as you go through this whole experience, you don't really
mm.
enjoy it.
Yes.
It's not
Yeah.
good
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. No, you're right. Like I definitely, like subconsciously, I mapped out my life, like even as a child, because I wasn't going to pick the hard subject because I didn't want to fail them. I didn't want to have to fail them. And I wanted to give myself a good chance to excel without trying extremely hard. But I think most importantly, like I was like, no, I don't think I'm good enough for that. So like I picked the ones that I knew I would excel at. That's what I did too. That was what I did. I'm telling you, those decisions I made at age 8, 9,
Yeah.
Yeah, and no one challenged it because no one cared enough to know what was going on in my inner world. It was definitely part of my experiences. No one cared. Like, people, like, I don't think as chaotic that as my childhood was, like, it wasn't obvious. So those type of like emotional neglect, emotional neglectful experiences, they're not obvious. Like, my parents just thought, yeah, she's making her own decisions. She's, like, and the system leaves it up to you to make those decisions as well. Like, it's not really singling you out, but my frame of mind was already developed. I didn't know that. Like, I just went with almost like a bodily reaction to, kind of let's go with that because I know I can excel in that. And I had my first feeling, and I think shame is something that I'd carried for a long time. When I think about, um, you know, my first experience of shame was in that sort of first failure. I think it was, my mom cutting my hair. I was 3 or 4. She shaved my head because I had head lice. She didn't think anything of it. My mom, like your 3-year-old who's looking at you like I couldn't go to school. And I told her I went to, like they would walk me. My school was right opposite the house. You still have to cross the main road. And they would walk me up until the part where I could walk to school. Very safe back then. There were lots of kids walking. And yeah, I didn't go in. I didn't go in. As soon as like they went back, I didn't go in, and I laughed to my mom that like their teacher said like I couldn't come in with my hair. Again, she was too busy. She didn't question it. She was mad. Like, why would she say that? Like, this is that and the other. I think she was too mad. She took me out of school anyways, like without really properly checking it out. And that was my first experience of shame. I didn't even go in. I could not even bear, the embarrassment, whether they were going to be in. Of course, I must have known that they would be because, kids are brutal. That was my first experience of shame, avoiding, moving away from things. And of course, at that age, you can't really give yourself compassion because you can't regulate your own emotions as a child. It has to be regulated for you. Someone has to sit there. And, your other question was like how, you were asking about like, um how do you develop this, something along those lines is, yeah, the reason why compassion is really difficult for a lot of us is because the inner template isn't there, because there was never people, adults who sat with us. Like, even the adults don't have that format themselves, because we regulate through co-regulation. That's how we learn to regulate. It's through co-regulation, through someone doing it with us. And so I couldn't offer myself the compassion. I could just survive, my survival mechanism were the typical classic fight, flight, freeze. And I was a fighter and a fleer, right? I either sort of kind of, I weighed in those, in those extreme ways is I either avoid it completely without me even knowing that I'm avoiding it, or I run away from it, or I either go at it full speed, anger, craftiness, s- kind of like that fun type response over things, excessive obsession with things, or I completely do a 360 and, you know, I wouldn't even know that thing exists. I wouldn't even know that I exist. So yeah, you can't do it if you've not seen people, if people haven't done it with you. So yeah, I couldn't offer myself compassion. So, shame guided me into things or guided me away from things, often guided me away from things.
Do you, how would you describe what's the purpose of shame? Why we have shame? If it seems so detrimental, like it's not really helping us,
Mm,
if we think about it logically or looking
mm-hmm,
for like
mm-hmm,
performance or
mm-hmm,
results and
mm-hmm,
even in some ways well-being,
mm.
what's the purpose of shame?
It's protection. Shame
Mm.
protects. It's part of our protective mechanism. It protects you from social death. Yeah, it protects you from sort of kind of being killed by people socially, your reputation gone, murdered, like, yeah, say it that way. But really, like, from not being, there's internal shame, there's external shame. External shame is like, people pointing fingers at you, right? you're bad. Shame is I'm bad, right?
Mm.
People thinking I'm bad. And we can't afford people thinking that we're bad because we're wired to belong in a group, right? So if we're wired to belong in a group, we have to act group like. We have to act like we're worthy of being in a group. So if my hair is bald and people are pointing fingers at me, I'm not going to have any friends. I'm going to be alone. To a child, that is death, literal death. And we become aware of shame. Like we can feel shame from the age of before one, depending on our emotional and social development. If a child is blanked by the parents, shame erupts. We've seen it in sort of developmental study. If a child is not getting the attention from the parent or the caregiver, they shut down. Shame is shut down to not be seen. So shame is protection. Shamelessness is also a problem,
Mm.
right? Shamelessness is also a problem. A lot of people have researched it in a lot of ways, like, shameless society, again, they're saying that there are no morals and this and this and that. So shame is protection. It's a good protection. I don't think we need it now in the world that we live in. Um, I don't know about shamelessness. It's not my area, but I've read it. I studied shame for a while, and I know that we've seen that, like, yeah, shamelessness is an issue. Like you hear people say they have no shame. Where is their shame when they are sort of criticizing um people's moral
There was
behavior
a
and
there was like interesting. I don't remember where I heard it. It might have been on Lisa's podcast, to be honest. Where there was like a person saying that. By the way, plug to Lisa Tickle, Healing Growing Hand in Hand podcast. Go check it out. Great,
yeah,
great podcast. Dr. Tammy
great
was on
podcast.
it.
I've been on
That's
there.
where we connected.
Yes.
um, there was like a person saying that shame serves that purpose within the society so that you know where you or how you fit in or don't fit
Mhm,
in or where
mhm,
you're crossing the
mhm. The
line
line,
of
yeah.
what's like allowed or
Mhm,
not
mhm,
allowed on
mhm,
that like
mhm.
at that level. And I remember the
Yes.
first time I heard it, I was like, oh, that actually makes so much
Yeah, yeah,
sense.
yeah, yeah. It's protective. It's sort of kind of like it's for us to belong. But of course, society is not safe for any of us now, really, is it? Because society has made it intolerable for us to even have good health with a lot of um unsafe practices, patriarchy, misogyny, violence, genocide, discrimination. So really, where are we in the world? Like, when is shame now safe? Because, like, the people that are getting criticized for not having shame are actually taking their liberty. They actually, it's liberation in a lot of ways. In a lot of ways now, yeah, in a safe society, in order for you to sort of find your belongingness, your footing, and you know, yeah, I don't think that the shame that I felt was safe as a child in any way, shape, or form because, why should a child feel ashamed about their appearance? But yet, like, society has made sort of like your goodness and your badness about certain criteria that are just ridiculous. We should feel ashamed for killing people, for murder, right? But yeah, we got to define all of these things, what's good and what's bad. And along the way, we've lost the plot on what's good and what's bad. So, I think that's counterfeit now because our society, exactly what is good, exactly good for who, bad for
Mm.
who, useful for who. So, yeah.
With the shame, what is it that, like, for example, for me, I know that for me, working through shame
Mm-hmm.
and one, changing my relationship with it, but also in some ways putting it in light
Mm.
has helped a lot to in some ways dissolve it, or there would be like
Mm-hmm.
some areas where I would feel like it literally would be paralyzing, where I
Mm-hmm.
would be like, I can't do this because
Mm-hmm.
whatever the story the shame
Mm-hmm.
would have. And even simple example is joining the basketball group that I joined last
Mm-hmm.
year. I learned about them through Facebook. They were posting that they're looking for players, and I was like, and my friend sent it over to me because I said to her I want to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And I would go through this internal conversation where I was like, I do want to do it, but I don't know anybody there. I don't know how good they are. I don't know if
Mm-hmm.
I'm good enough.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, good enough means I need to be the best,
Mm-hmm.
pretty much,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
based on like those standards or like
Mm-hmm.
old standards.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember I messaged them, then
Mm.
I joined them, and like since
Mhm.
then it's been great experience.
Mhm.
But
Mhm.
it's if I wasn't
Mm.
in a place where I had worked through some of
Mm.
it or
Yeah.
being aware, I wouldn't
Mhm.
even taken that step. And I have
Yeah.
done, or I have, even in the past, I would miss out on so many opportunities,
Yeah.
so many experiences
Mhm.
just because of that. Where
Mhm.
now there's like one lady that I'm doing podcast with where she said brilliantly about shame,
Mm.
chase the shame.
Mm.
And it's partly what I have started to do
Mhm.
where I would feel shame. Even like
Mhm.
recently I joined like a triathlon
Mhm.
swimming program.
Mhm.
And I would be like, I mean, I wasn't swimming when I was younger, but I haven't been in a while. I don't know how many people are gonna be there. I don't know how good they're gonna be. And it's like you have this whole story or like this
Mhm.
fear that would come in my mind, which forced some other people to be like, oh, I'm curious. I want to join. Like, I
Mm.
love it. In my mind,
Mhm.
I'm like, I start to hear like errors going off.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it was so interesting to go through that because this time it was way less because
Mm.
I have gone through those experiences and I
Mhm.
have also built relationship with myself where I'm like,
Mhm.
even if it's really bad, I'm probably gonna be fine. I will
Yeah.
handle it.
Yeah.
Um, how to navigate that or how to even identify where is shame actually contributing towards me making decisions, me
Mhm.
maybe making it or playing it small
Mhm.
or not going after some of the opportunities.
Yeah. Yeah. You said it yourself, right? So you said it yourself. Who are you making decision for?
Mm.
Right? Are you at the center of the decisions that you're making? Right? And what expectations are you setting for yourself? When you set impossible standard for yourself, shame is going to grow, right? But when you set realistic standard for yourself, which, for you, you're saying that it's about participation, right? Just go. Like, there's something about the maturity side. You defeated shame in saying, you've been fine before. I'm not there to please other people. I'm doing it for me, right? There's so many ways I can sort of kind of go through this. Like, I can go through my own journey. I needed to know what my values are. In fact, there are times when shame should have sort of kind of like warmed its way into my life, and it hadn't, because I wasn't setting high expectation for myself. I wasn't as aware of myself. I'm the type of person I used to be the type of person, not as self-conscious in some ways. Again, sort of honestly, my psychological profile is very, very weird because you wouldn't even know all of these things that I'm telling you, if you had met me. You know, at age 17, 18, I think I went for an audition. I mean, I can't sing. I'm a bathroom singer. Right? I'm a bathroom singer. I'm good in the bathroom. And I was working in a restaurant, and one of my German colleagues was just like, oh, I like the way you sing. Like, there's an audition. I went for the audition. I didn't care. Of course I didn't get in, and they laughed at me. But when I told my sister's like, you're mad. How did you do that? Like, and it's like, shame didn't sort of kind of get in there. I think when you're just having fun, and you're doing things
um,
for you, because this guy sort of kind of like boosted and it wasn't like I was like, really like taking myself too seriously, like I'm going to suddenly become a singer. But that's one of the things that I look back on. I'm like, where was the shame there? Like, it wasn't there because there wasn't as much expectation. Honestly, there wasn't. It was an afternoon after work. We just went, and this audition was happening. We went. There was no expectation.
and I think it's also because there was connection,
There was
probably.
connection. Yeah.
Yeah.
So shame and compassion and connection can't stay in the same bowl.
Mm.
Shame becomes neutralized when you're connected. And this is why I advocate for, like, let's be connected to ourselves, people. Like our society is so messed up now that we can't trust what the bar is. But your own inner compass. You know your own values. My values guide me. There are so many times like shame, fear would have stopped me doing things. Even now as an adult, like, I swim now and I'm not very good at swimming, right? And I've encountered some difficult people in the pool, who aren't, really nice people, body image, this, that, and the other. But it's a bigger purpose than those factors. It's bigger than my fear. I wanna move. Movement is, when it comes to fitness, movement is my value. It's not how good I am, it's not the output, it's not how I look. Movement. Why? Because that is connected to sort of kind of more higher version of me. For my body, for my health, as long as I move, like, I would walk, exercise is not about numbers anymore. It's not about how I look. I don't get bogged down like, oh my God, I'm not losing weight, or like, I know I can be good. I can have good season where life isn't so chaotic and I can move well and I eat well because life is, but movement is my value and my goal. Like, I just value movement because I know my body needs it. It feels good. It feels connected. I love nature. So if I'm swimming or if I'm going to the gym, and sometimes I don't even want to go to the gym, I just want to move out because I want to connect to nature. Right? So it's about, when you're connected to yourself, you actually know your value. It's not about other people. Right? So like if someone pissed me off in the gym, in the pool, they're sort of kind of like people that have pissed me off in the pool recently. And like my little fear mind is like, oh no, we can't go. Like, okay, like let's just switch lanes, and like maybe you're swimming too slow for this person. And because I'm connected and I'm able to sort of, manage those thoughts in as much as other thought is like, you're here. You're here and you've said you're gonna be here for an hour and you're just going to stay regardless the course. And I think that's being connected. I'm not just going for any, I'm connected to my values in that way. If I'm not swimming, I'm moving one way or another. There's less criticism from myself around my fitness, because that's another thing that, like my my high achievement side of me, like, is sort of kind of filtered into like my fitness over the years, and what I do, how I do it, how I achieve it, consistency. I used to just be starting stuff, start. It's all or nothing. If it's not good, if it's not really good, it's not good enough. Right. And so, being that connected to myself, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. I can sort of show compassion. I think it all fits in together when you start to think about it. You set realistic expectation when you're connected to yourself, when you're sort of kind of like connected to your values. These other thoughts about you're not good enough, or is not well enough, or is not a great effort, they subside. You really, like, you wake up and you know what you're working for, and you prioritize the way your day goes. When you are connected to your values, like, I could have canceled you today, but like this is important. I had to tell myself, like, because I'm not feeling so great, but not great enough to not come. I wanted to sleep. There's something else, but I'm like, okay, in the order of priority, like, I want to do this, right? So when you're connected to sort of kind of like your values, your whys, your why is important, and you can't always do everything. But you are consciously choosing that one. Okay, I'm going to be able to manage the disappointment that I can't get to this, but I'm going to do this. There are so many things that I want to do, but I can't do them, but I'm going to do this. So, sort of kind of speaking to you, speaking to Lisa, that's sort of kind of being part of the things that I've said myself, that I can achieve this. I can't achieve starting some other projects, but I can achieve this because the effort I can meet this expectation is not high, and I could set other expectation for me that I will achieve this out. I'm realistic about it. And I think that comes hand in hand with knowing yourself, and also sort of being able to sort of care for yourself and being mindful of caring for yourself. So I definitely think being connected to our values, that connection is very, very, very important. And sometimes, like, I've done it subconsciously with this audition. Like, I just want to spend time with my friend. I wasn't conscious about it, but I think in our adult life, we have to be, with my client, when I'm working with my client and we're working through self-criticism, shame, childhood trauma we're working with. So what matters to you really? That's the question. Where do these values come from? Now I don't have my mom's values anymore, right? Which is, to be successful at all costs. That's not mine. That's hers. So back to, it's up to her. I'm not doing my life for anybody, not for my mom. I've broken that cycle. Now my son as well, right? As much as before I had my son, I wanted to raise a little mini footballer because of course I didn't do sport and he had to do sport, right? And I was telling my cousin like, oh, definitely he will play football. Hell no, he's not even the football type. I know who I'm raising like he's not him. And like, I can't even believe I said that. He's going to do whatever he wants to do. He wants to do football. If he likes it, he likes it, but he's not going to carry my goal. That cycle is broken now where I'm not raising a child for my own unfulfilled dreams. Doesn't mean I'm not going to support and motivate him to do something, but it's going to come out of it. Whatever is going to sort of kind of however he's going to work through life to figure that out. So sometimes we're even carrying values of other people, our parents, society. So we need to sit down with ourselves at some point, I think in our adult life. I'm not expecting a 16-year-old to do this, but I think it's important that when you're sort of becoming your own person, however age, I mean, I didn't identify my values until I was post 25. I would have loved to have done it earlier to be aware, to have someone who would have that conversation with me, especially in my relationship life. Like, what type of relationship matter to you? What's important to you? Someone to tell me about the importance of feeling safe and to align my values with what makes me feel safe. I would have wanted to have that conversation, in everything that I did, in my pursuit of my career. What matters to you? Who are you doing it for? Are you carrying yourself along? I would have wanted to have that conversation. And I think it's really, really a useful conversation to have with ourselves. Is really think about what are the things that you're prioritizing right now. Because our values can be split into two. We have them. We know them. You know your values is value, yours. Sometimes though, you write them down and you're thinking, that's not mine. That's not my value. So I always say to my client, write what you think your parents' values are. Your mom, your dad, what do you think your parent prioritizes? What do they prioritize? What does your mom prioritize? What does your dad prioritize? Someone who you look up to, right? What their values, society's value. What do you think society values? Because of course we ingest society in a lot of ways. And they write those down. So it's a really good exercise for us to, think about ourselves. Now write your own values, sometimes I can be prescriptive and say, what are your values in your career life, in your friendship, or you can just write generic values. And then we think about it. What do you make of your parents' values? And people talk, and usually people can sort of kind of have a good conversation. You just know yourself and you just know that. And, what do you think about your values? Where are you at? Are these things important to you? And sometimes people will look and they'll be like, that's my mom's value. Or they write their own values down and they're saying that's not what I'm doing right now. That's not what I'm doing right now. So if these are your values and that's not what you're living right now, what's getting in the way? And then that's when we start to unpack the things that are getting in the way. But really, knowing those values is very important in moving away from all of these experiences that we're talking about, whether it's our high expectation, criticism, shame, things we're doing, things we're not doing, negative thoughts, when we really are. Because you die tomorrow, right? And again, I talk to my clients about that. I have to think about death because that's one thing that is certain. Taxes is certain. You're going to get taxed. You're going to pay bills and you're going to die. And you don't know when you're going to die. And if everything that you're doing, they're saying they give you 1 week, that's all you have. Are you still going to do all of those things? Are you really are those things are those the things that you're going to prioritize? and thinking about mortality can generate fear for a lot of people. That's also behind a lot of what we're doing and what we're not doing and how we're going about life. Subconscious fears, a lot of our unconscious fears are around our mortality, how we do things. But when we don't bring it to the fore, it doesn't really help us live. So really thinking about the fact that you're not going to be here forever, right? And you're going to be comfort, and you don't know when. So are you doing the things that matter to you? And so that's where values can help. Values, I think, pivots us towards, living a life that belongs to us rather than a life that belongs to other people, to society. And values can really help us invite compassion into our lives. It really can challenge us whenever we're struggling to do that. In fact, in learning compassion, values are entwined with it. When I talk about the commitment to not making things worse for you, your values can be one of those things that can enable you to deal with difficult situations. That, yes, suffering is part of life. If I can't minimize it, one way you don't make it worse is making sure you're living life for you. So if I don't achieve that expectation, I have to grieve that. That yes, there's a part of me that wants to be the best, best football player or best, you know, but I still deserve to live. Like, what is the point living in a prison that I've created for myself just because I've set this expectation? You can grieve that. The thing is, you can grieve the part of you that wanted that thought that's the only way to live. Right? And what else matters to you? Because, this is just an achievement, is like a doom, tick, you've done it. Like, so say you can't have what other life. So your values really invite you to sort of see beyond fixated ideas, right? So that life does not become a prison for you, because no one deserves to live in, you've not come here to live in a prison. And society has ways to create prisons for us, in ways in which expectations are designed, what we're supposed to do, whether you're a woman, whatever, your earlier experiences. So in order for you to sort of free yourself from that, to liberate yourself, your values will be there. And so I've never found someone who has struggled with their values. I've never found someone who struggled with what they value and what their purpose is. It's just a matter of, it's a matter of, you know, is that possible, or is a matter of, can you have it all? Because sometimes your values can conflict. And so you have to make decisions. You have decisions to make. When I say life is grief, a lot of things that we have to do in life is grieve the things that we can't have and sit with that. So,
Yeah. Question I had with what you just said,
uh,
because I do think that a lot of people feel confused about who I am, what's my purpose, what are
mhm,
my values. Are there ways to get clarity on that? Because another
mhm,
topic that I wrote down that probably is valuable to talk on, definitely not probably,
mhm.
is authenticity. Because I would
Yeah.
have, I'm doing a lot of networking, I'm talking to a lot of people, and a lot of times people will tell me about my authenticity, and they're like, "You're so real to yourself," and
Mhm,
or they can see that I'm being my authentic self.
mhm, mhm,
Um, which again, not 100% of the time, but it's been interesting to see how the more I connect with myself, embrace myself, who I really am,
mhm,
my sometimes weird, many people call crazy self,
mhm,
um, but it's me and I own it. And in
mhm,
some ways, I have built a relationship with myself where it's really interesting place to be, because there was a time when it was unfamiliar where I
mhm,
actually enjoy spending time with myself. I
mhm,
actually
mhm,
like my company
mhm,
and sometimes even prefer
mhm,
it.
mhm,
And
mhm,
but at the same time, there's I think it's uh the question probably would be how to find your true self, how to
mm,
connect with it, how to even identify it when we are
Mhm.
so lost in all these narratives with
Mhm.
people around us, even like
Mhm.
with social media, things
Mhm.
online,
Mhm.
how to find yourself?
Okay. It's there. Yeah, you're there. Like that's the reality. Um, if you're in argument with yourself about that, just know that that's part of the problem to solve. That's not who you are. So we all have our authenticity. We all have our true self. It's inside of us, and our chaos, disconnection. When we're disconnected from who we are, we can't, and what disconnects us is, honestly, I just put it down again to traumatic experience and stress, right? And so to find our true self, I always say the ABCs of this. I spoke to Lisa about this as well. First, you need to start being curious with your feelings. Now, you're not your feelings. Your feelings are just the data that will connect you, right? You're not your thoughts. One of the things that really helped me on this journey, will I tell you, is not taking my thoughts personally. Ah, the day that I gave myself the freedom to think about anything and know that I am not my thoughts, that was one of the biggest liberation that I had. Because I have thoughts, like, you know what? Like my mind moves like a Ferrari. Fast thoughts, funny thoughts, crazy thoughts. I'm like, which makes it really difficult for me to connect with myself if I sort of kind of like think, oh my God, I'm a bad person for thinking that. I shouldn't. The day that I give myself the liberation that you can think anything, weird thought, psychopathic thoughts, they're just not you. Those thoughts aren't who you are. Your feelings also aren't who you are, right? That's the beginning of it, because those are the big experiences for all of us, right? So our thoughts and our feelings can motivate what we do and what we don't do. They're so powerful. And those are the things that get us lost, because information is coming in, is generating thoughts, is generating feelings, is generating motives. And so we get lost with our essence, with our spiritual, with sort of kind of like what's in there. So noticing, noticing, like being able to notice what you're feeling, being able to notice the thought that you're having, like, thoughts are like helium balloons, right? If you hold them tight to you and you sort of kind of put weight on them, you personalize them. You make it feel like that's who I am. So if I think bad, I'm a bad person. No. If I think psychotic, I'm a bad person. No, you're not. You just have to be mindful of them, right? So that's the starting point. Start being curious about your thoughts and your feelings. Start note feelings in particular. Feelings are heavier, right? They sort of state like, the moment anxiety enters my body, honestly, I'm a completely different person.
Yeah, and there's much less thinking going on.
Yeah, there's much less thinking going on. I'll freeze, I'll shut down, or I might talk too much, right? So I guess that sort of kind of orienting yourself to being curious with your thoughts, with your feelings, and you start to understand, where do they come from? What's motivating them? And you start to really get to know yourself through that. But your thoughts aren't you, I would say. Bottle, the water is not the bottle. No matter how hard it is for you to distinguish, the water is not the bottle and the bottle is not the water. It will never ever be. And that's the reality of thoughts and feelings in you. They're just content. They're not who you are. So that's one way. And it can take a while if you've never gotten to do this. You might need support of someone. So these are the things that I guide people through in my therapy, in my coaching, is just that sort of kind of playing that observer role. The more of the observer role that you play, that's how you connect with who you are. That's how you know that, you have different parts of you, different version of you, right? I have my playful self, I have my serious self, my sad self. You're not made of just one self, right? And when you can create space for all of your being and you can offer compassion to that, I think that's when we start to sort of kind of like really know. we really are able to feel it. I think on a level like the way that I think more these days, it's just very spiritual. I can't really describe it like, this is sort of kind of what authenticity look like. This is what your true self looks like. But I think we can feel it. And I think,
Yeah, it's like you know.
yeah, like, there are qualities, there are things that we experience, when we are being our true self, when we're connected, we have a little bit more clarity, like I said, it's a feeling, it's very physiological. Um, we have more clarity, we're more creative, like we can hold space for different realities. There's a wisdom that comes with it. You're more intuitive, and I'm not talking about intuition of you just sort of kind of feeling anxiety because like you're thinking, oh, it's different. It's very, very, very much different. So starts with being aware of like your inner experiences, those thoughts, and sort of, not fusing with that, noticing them. The feelings is the big one. I always sort of kind of like get people to download the feelings app. Notice how your feelings change throughout the days, throughout the day.
Do
When
you
you're
have any
feeling
apps that you can
sad,
recommend?
there are a few. Mood tracker. That's one of the ones. And something. Well, something. Let me see. Honestly, there's loads. It doesn't matter which one you download, but mood tracker is one. And journaling as well. I recommend journaling. It's one of our natural creative process. And just writing and just sort of journal for a week. Set a timer to journal for a week and sort of kind of just read what you journal. So yeah, journaling can be very useful if you're not in therapy, tracking your feelings, but really knowing that you know your feelings and you know your thought. When you start to track your mood and your feelings and you see the variety of feelings that you go through in a day, what I'm saying will make sense to you. That how can you be all of these things? You can't be. They're just, you know, um, part of your consciousness. And yes, what we talked about earlier is how do we know when we're safe when we've never really felt safe? You're not gonna know. You're not gonna know. It's gonna feel like boredom. It's gonna feel like laziness. It's gonna feel like danger. That's where rewiring and retraining your brain comes to it. And I think more often than not, you might need someone to guide you, or you might have to be intentional. You might have to be intentional knowing that it's not going to feel safe, and you want to find what's my baseline of safety. Usually, honestly, having someone to guide you is what I recommend if you completely are lost. And if you don't have someone, um, starting by journaling, or maybe sort of some self-help podcasts, can, just get an education. I believe that knowledge is power. Knowledge is power. But knowing too much can also be an avoidance strategy. Right? So
I
you have
call
to
it
find,
feel good productivity.
yeah, we can know too much, and I fall into the category of like, gathering information and never doing sometimes when I'm avoiding. So I noticed that about me too. So trying to sort of kind of find so much information can lead to avoidance. But really, like, you have to get to know yourself. You have to get to know your inner experiences, your feelings, your thoughts. And that's when journaling sort of help you rain them down, and you start to identify things, you start to identify patterns, and you start to be able to be curious and observe, where did this come from? Like, how did I get here? But reality is everyone knows their values. Everyone knows where they want to be. What life, no fear, no nothing in your way. What would life look like for you? What would on your deathbed? Those questions, like, what would you say matters to you? How would you have wanted to live? Like, I always read reflections from people who are dying. It motivates me because it's all the things that we already know. What they say, the simple things. I think our society purposely disconnects us to benefit from us. because eventually it's the simple things that matter. It's the connection that we make, is spending time with the people that we care about, is creating connection, and being true to who we are, and not succumbing to shame. All of those things, not worrying about the little things. Those are the things people talk about on their deathbed when they have, I say, the privilege, because not everyone would have an experience of a deathbed, because we can die suddenly. um but when people have that opportunity to reflect on the life that they've lived, there's a consensus on what people talk about. It's never, the grade that they didn't get. It's never the job that they didn't get. It's never, focusing on like their bum, their appearance, all of the things. I think these are the things that society has set as a trap. Do you want to know the richest industry? Want to know the richest industry?
Which,
Insecurity and
oh,
women.
oh my
That's the richest
gosh.
industry. Cosmetic. Before cosmetic, and the Kardashian, like those type of kind of what is it? Trend, diet, food, right? Those are the richest industry. Those are the richest industry. The diet, there's a new diet. There's a diet in winter, there's a diet in summer, there's a diet in spring. Cross culture.
Yeah.
Now is still diet, fitness, plagued as like they're trying to make us healthy, because it's Pilates now that is going to
I think it's less
strengthen your
even like being
muscle. And
healthy than like you need to fit this image that you have to, like, you just have to be that for you to
yeah,
be what,
yeah,
good enough?
yeah, yeah, yeah. And it's constantly changing. The bar is constantly changing. Travel industry here as well, because of social media. Seeing how the other half live. This is what you have to do. Travel, 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 in order for you to sort of feel like you belong. It becomes less about the experience and more about
I think
showing to other people what you can do.
it it could even like be creating that perspective that what's that, whatever that is
Mhm.
better than what I have or who I
Mhm.
am. And
Yeah.
it's always that endless pursuit of
Yeah.
the next thing, whichever
Mhm.
area you
Yep.
might choose,
Yeah.
because there's endless list of areas in which you can be
Yes.
like not good enough.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
instead of actually going within, which is actually, I had this interesting thought when I was last year. I trained for half Ironman, and
Mhm.
I had given myself 90 days. Usually
Mhm.
it's like 6 to 8 months. So I had to pack
Yeah.
a lot within that
Mhm.
time. And training became a big focus. And I would be out on a bike like hours a day, or
Mhm.
running or
Mhm.
swimming. And rarely I would have anything that I would listen. And
Yeah.
I remember one day after the swim, I was in sauna and I was thinking, and I wrote it down. I probably won't be able to find that notebook now, but I wrote down something along the lines of, we have become so distracted from ourselves,
Mhm.
where actually all the answers that we need we have within us, but we're
Yes.
so distracted from ourselves
Yeah.
that we don't
Yeah.
even think
Yeah.
of going within. It's just
Yeah.
like, what's that, what do I need,
Mhm.
what do I
Mhm.
need, I need to look at
Yeah.
this, I need to research this, I need to
Yeah.
watch this,
Yeah.
instead of like, hold up, take a step
Yeah.
back,
Yeah. Yeah.
get take like, even if it's
Mhm.
like 1 hour, doesn't
Yeah.
matter,
Mhm.
go for a walk in the
Mhm.
nature, nothing coming in you
Yeah.
or nothing outside of you, and
Yeah.
go within and see what comes out.
Yes.
And it can feel, and I have gone through that, and sometimes I still go through that when I get too distracted. It can feel so uncomfortable initially to do that,
Mhm.
but then once you, by pretty much like by the point I got to the end of my like prep,
Mm.
I would catch myself, even today, I didn't want to do my bike ride, which,
Yeah.
by the way, good thought on what you mentioned before about all or nothing. I was listening
Mm.
one podcast with one fitness coach, where she said that she doesn't have all or nothing.
Yeah.
She has all or something. Where
Yeah.
she said, some days I will do everything, some days I will do something. And
Yes.
and today I was like, initially I wanted to do 50K bike,
Mhm.
and as I was cycling, I'm like, I don't know if my energy is there. And I was like, first of all, you almost didn't do this workout. Let's
Mhm.
start there. Secondly, I will be like, I think I done close to like 1.5 hours.
Mhm,
And I
mhm,
was like, well, you're already like winning, and it's like just now getting back to cycling. So it's
mhm,
like just being mindful not to overdo it. And there's it was so interesting to ex- kind of experiencing the real time of that all or something. It's like some
mhm,
days you will do everything that you plan
mhm,
out.
mhm,
Some days life will get to you. You will.
mhm.
It's better to do something
Something.
than
Mhm,
nothing.
mhm,
But even through that bike ride, I really enjoyed it because no headphones again, nothing. I'm just with myself.
mhm,
Sometimes it can be literally for hours.
mm,
And something about it I think is something that's missing because we're
mhm,
looking always externally instead of going
mhm.
within,
Yes.
and also trusting that you actually have all the answers you need
Yeah,
already.
yeah, yeah. It takes practice.
Yeah.
It takes you practicing it and trying it. And again, those feelings when they're so huge and so big, they don't give people the window. And so that's why you have to start noticing these feelings and knowing that like they they're not who you are. They're just what you're experiencing. And giving space to them, noticing how varied they are. Because you are right, that's what you're saying, mindfulness. We have wisdom, so much wisdom within us. If we connect with the wisdom we have within us, they won't make money off us. The more disconnected we are in our lives, the more we're going to look outside for who we are, right? And we're going to be told, we leave it into the hands of other people to tell us who we are. And they can never tell us who we are. They will tell us this, you need to be this, you need to be that, you need to be that. The standard, the bar is forever changing. And so you have to look within yourself. It's just I think this is why I commit to that aspect of finding you. Find you, everyone, and back on the journey of finding you. That should be your religion, that should be your purpose, that should be before you find something else, even in doing something else. Don't get lost. There is nothing you can do. Like, there's nothing you can pursue that everything has an ending. Don't get lost of not having yourself. It's very, very important that you have that um, consciousness around who you are to sort of kind of take that along so it doesn't get lost because it can very, very easily get lost in what you do. And I think, there can be overlap, but knowing who you are and committing to who you are and being able to come back home to yourself, that's very, very important. That's very, very important. And creating a safe home in your mind where your mind is not somewhere you think you need to run away from. That's very, very important. And so when you start to become familiar with your own thoughts, with your own feelings, and you're not running away from them, and you can ground them, you can write them down, you can note them. These are just thoughts. These are thoughts that I'm having. In fact, God, that's that thought again. That's that intrusive thought again. You don't even sort of, you toss it out, you don't even remember it. Right? You start to sort of create a safe home in yourself. Everything falls into place. Everything falls into place.
Like I had this analogy that I'm using when I explain in some ways what we do to ourselves is like whenever we have guests over, there's always like one room where like nobody can go in there.
Mhm,
Nobody's allowed there. We put
mhm,
everything there,
mhm.
and I think we do similar thing with ourselves
Yeah.
where we just put things away and we don't want to face them.
Mhm,
And the way I describe, which is like probably the first step, awareness, is that
mhm,
it's like we are in this dark room, and before we can clean it up, we need to turn on the light. And
mhm,
that's really awareness where we can actually see it.
mhm,
And sometimes even seeing it's
mm,
so hard because now
mm,
you actually see, especially I think when it comes to awareness, in beginning you get some glimpses of it, but then you
mm,
kind of become hyper aware where you see
mhm,
everything that's wrong
mhm,
with you.
mhm, mhm,
And it's like, oh my gosh, I'm a mess up. And
mhm,
it's
mhm,
like you get so overwhelmed with that level of awareness when it's like, I don't even know what do I start to clean up? Where
mhm,
do I start?
mhm,
Um, how to navigate that where I think initially I know through journaling it definitely helps with awareness because
mhm,
in some ways it slows down your
mhm.
thoughts and you actually
Yeah.
can see them and
Mhm,
observe them.
Yeah.
What to do once you are aware of certain
Mhm.
things or certain patterns that you see in yourself?
Mm, mm. So yeah, we can get overwhelmed with, becoming too aware, and I just say like drop everything. Drop everything if it becomes to sort of
How?
like,
How? It
yeah.
feels so
So
impossible.
okay, so it's about anchoring yourself, feeling safe.
Mm.
Again, it's becomes about, look, your own, you're dysregulated again. Knowing too much has dysregulated you. Find something that makes you feel safe. In safeness, not safety, in safeness, we have clarity.
Mm.
In safeness, we have clarity. And this is why people need to know what makes them feel safe. Like, let me tell you, physiologically, your heart is slower, your heart rate is slower. This is why breathing is very, kind of, and I'm not saying that that's what's going to make you feel safe, but when your heart rate is slower, when you don't feel like you have to run and your body doesn't feel like it's fighting a war. I asked this question as a child: what used to make you feel safe? As a child, like the intuition is there, it's there. So when knowing too much is again like I don't even know where to start. And I experienced that. Okay, so I've moved into a little bit more creativity around my work now, rather than sort of talking to people and coaching. And I'm doing so many things, and my mind can get jump. I drop it all. Like if I, like where do I go? I need to feel safe again. In safeness, I always have clarity. Find that thing. Anchor yourself to one thing that makes you feel safe. Give yourself time, right? Where your heart rate slows down. Someone who you talk to who can sort of, ground you. You have to have your feet and your mind in the same place. Whether that's nature again, that's what I mean by drop everything and re-anchor yourself. Because it's not in the book, it's not in the magazine, it's not in, you know, you need to come back home to yourself again and ground yourself. And I don't know what would work for you. I don't want to have to be prescriptive. And I think that's one of the first job that we do in my therapy and coaching session. We have to know what makes you feel safe. That's the elementary way. We can't do anything else. We can't go after the values, after the goals, you have to know what makes you, whoever you are. It's non-negotiable. When a baby cries, and it's like, "Arr, arr," before they even eat the food, they need to feel safe and soothed first. That's the beginning. So you need to come back to, at least, I'm not saying like 100% feeling kind of like Zen zone, but
Yeah.
to a baseline, and know your
Yeah.
baseline and then start again. Because in that place of connectedness, that's where you have clarity, right? That's where you can have curiosity again. So how do I move? What do I do first?
Is it also in some ways you're not in that like survival mode or
You're
like
not, yeah,
reactive mode?
yeah, you're not in your sympathetic state is again not the most activated.
Yeah.
Again, like on a scientific level, this is what we're saying with when you're being self-critical, you're again in that sympathetic state. You're in that fight or flight mode, right? When you are, in that sort of kind of state of safeness, your vagus nerve is activated. And it can be blended. You can sort of kind of like, be in that place. And, you know, if I'm preparing for this podcast today and I don't over prepare, but I want to know something, or I'm frantic, I can blend that sympathetic state with also knowing that I'm safe, because, it's not then shooting high, it's not shooting off. So again, this is where that knowledge is power again, know yourself, know your body, but the knowledge is not outside of you. Even if you come and see me, I am not giving you the knowledge. I am guiding you to find it within you. There is nothing in the book that, is suddenly going to change life for you. It's all within you. Your greatness, all that you are, your dreams, your purpose is within you. Your wisdom, everything is within. So you have to navigate that journey within. And again, know what makes you feel safe. Know what makes you feel connected. You will know from how you feel like your heart rate becomes slower. You will be able to tell me, that makes sense. You will have a bit more clarity. There will be a bit more playfulness. Honestly, like things change within you. So that first journey is what makes me feel safe, what makes me feel soothed. And to anyone listening who has never found that, it's not because it doesn't exist. It's just because you haven't had the right tools or you've not been in the right environment. But you can achieve it. It's definitely not out of reach. So if it seems foreign, if it seems strange, know that it's not because it doesn't exist. I have a few meditative practices. I think, meditation again is one of our ancestral resource that we have. Like, on my YouTube channel is not, it's not a lot, but breathing exercises can be there. These are things that I try with my clients in coaching, in therapy, and they're able to connect. Even the most dysregulated person, we find something that anchors them, and people are able to tell me, oh yeah, okay, gosh, that feels good. Oh gosh, that feels different, right? And it takes practice. There's something for you. Like there are people who breathing exercise don't work for. There are people who, they will just travel with the sound and they listen to the sound and then but they find their thing. They start to notice what changes in my body. Oh, so when I do that, like I can feel that. Okay, so why don't we look for other things like that or like, practice this and try and get into this day and they are able to make sense of things. So you have to find your own thing. But the safest place has to be in your body and in your mind. It has to be a place where you can live, where you can grow. When a plant doesn't grow, we don't say this plant is something is wrong with it. We check the soil, we check the light, we check everything around it. Make sure that in your body and in your mind, those conditions are right and you will grow.
Is there something, or what did you say to somebody who might tend to initially, because I think through that exploration to pretty much like to the points what you said about curiosity being really important.
Hmm.
What if their initial reaction is to go to judgment?
Yeah.
How to
If
navigate it? What did you say to them if they identify that I instantly judge myself? I can't even be
Yeah,
curious about
notice
me.
that. I'd be curious about the part that judges. How harsh is it? Who does it sound like?
Mm.
Right? You know, if he had a facial expression, what does it look like? Give it a character. Name it. A Stella showing up for you again. No, you're not psychotic. We exist in multiples. I have like my Stella. My anger is called Stella. I named it. I'll be curious about every part. I'll be curious about what is that part of you trying to achieve. Oftentimes they're protective part. Like we said, they're often the part that try to make us avoid shame, carry shame. They're protecting us from something. You have to get to know those parts because once you get to be curious and you know a part and you know what role they're playing and you can unburden them from that role and say, look, I get it that you're trying to protect me from other people judging me. I can handle this now. I don't care about other people. Like, you know what? I'm 30 now. Like, I don't care about other people. Like, that's in the past. Because oftentimes it's because like those parts are still responding to experiences from the past. So it's curiosity. You're not going to get rid of the judgment by having another attacking part, by challenging it. If you don't get to know it, you're not going to work with it. So yeah, it's the curiosity. I say spend a week noticing when does it show up. What's happening when this part comes up for you? What does it look? Oftentimes people will start to notice that these parts of them are actually like maybe a parent, maybe a teacher, internalize people and experiences from their past. So curiosity is very important. We won't fight judgment with more judgment. We don't, like the war inside our head does not need another war in order to kill it.
Yeah, I know that for me, curiosity has been a big one, and many
Yeah,
people and myself including, describe myself as curious, and I know that it's
yeah.
been helping a lot with a lot of things actually. But
Mm-hmm.
it's I was now sitting and thinking, I don't think I have the answer to it. Might need to think on it of like how did I transition from judgment to curiosity? Because there was a
Yeah.
time when I would be really
Mm-hmm.
judgmental, I would be really hard on myself,
Yeah.
and it's like nothing ever was good enough. Or if it
Mm-hmm.
was good enough, there's this thing also who isn't. that isn't good
Yeah.
enough.
Yeah.
And it was like this endless list of things or reasons or
Mm-hmm.
proof why, oh, you're not good enough, you're not this, you're
Yeah.
not that.
Mm-hmm.
Or like you don't deserve this, you don't deserve
Mm-hmm.
that. And now where I think that part is still there, but
Mm.
it's like, one, I can give it space, but
Yeah.
also I have that curiosity
Yeah.
to actually hear it out.
Yeah.
Because I even like recently I had a conversation with somebody where I was like, because like I have like few people that I'm working with, like Olympic athletes and
Mm-hmm.
stuff like that, and I was like, I part of me thinks that I don't deserve this, that I'm not good
Mm-hmm.
enough to do
Mm-hmm.
this. And he said me like, what do you think it though? And it made me
Mm.
stop. I'm like, huh. And I didn't have answer because I
Yeah.
don't really have
Mm-hmm.
real reason
Mm-hmm.
to think
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah.
Um, but it was really interesting. Again, curiosity. That was just
Mm.
like that one
Yeah.
question made me
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
get curious. I
Yeah.
wonder
Yeah.
why. Like,
Yeah.
there's actually no real reason.
Yeah.
And but it's just like that old pattern or
Yeah.
that
Mm-hmm.
habitual, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh,
Mm-hmm.
kind of
Mm-hmm.
alert,
Yeah.
alert.
Yeah.
But it's something that yeah, I will need to think on this, because this is, I know that for me becoming more curious has helped
Yeah.
a lot, but there was a time
Yeah.
when I wasn't curious at
Mm-hmm.
all. I just had
Mm-hmm.
these
Mm-hmm.
strict assumptions about
Mm-hmm.
me that I was
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, this is it, this is true
Yeah.
about me, that's me.
Yeah.
And then I got to the point of like, says who?
Yeah. 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 Everything boils down to being curious. We don't find things out like scientists, you're not gonna know about, an issue or understand something if you're not curious, if you're not observing it. That's where that's wisdom right there for you. And every irrational decision often lead to escalation, war, fight. You're not gonna resolve anything. So curiosity is a very, very big part. It's an aspect of compassion. Compassion will be curious with you. Compassion would hold hand with you. Compassion is not like, trying to fight anything. It's just wanting to understand and wanting to commit, like, how can we not make things worse is a question.
Yeah.
What
uh,
do we want to achieve?
Another question I wanted to ask, or one
Yeah.
topic I wanted to touch on, is regulating yourself
Yeah.
and your emotions, and not controlling them,
Yeah.
regulating them.
Yeah.
Maybe can you explain first the difference between the two, controlling
Yeah.
emotions and
Controlling. Yeah.
regulating them?
So people think sort of kind of being regulated means like zen and not feeling.
Mm.
That's one of the myths. That's a lie. It's a lie. Um, because I can be in rage, and that means that I'm being regulated. Because if you're trying to hurt my child,
You're not
don't
gonna be
expect me
zen
to be
about
calm.
it.
I'm not zen. If it's something that I need to protect.
Yeah.
In fact, dysregulation would be me not fighting for my kid.
Yeah.
And that's one of the biggest myths about regulation, that people think that being regulated means being calm. When my child, my 2-year-old who has febrile convulsion, we landed from America and, we went into a convulsion. How and why, I don't know. Like, all I know is I could see him sort of kind of seizuring and seizuring and seizuring. And I'm calling like an ambulance, and they're asking me foolish questions. And I'm like, he's having a seizure right now. And actually, like, he's gone into an unconscious state, and he was asking me, is he breathing? Repeating the same question when I'm telling you, like, and I was mad and I was furious. And, later when I was like, he was all right, and I was reflecting on like my state, before I would have judged that state. And I was like, like, I could hear my compassionate self say, what are you meant to do? You're meant to be outraged by outrageous stuff. You did the right thing. You did everything you needed to do. And she didn't judge me. The person over the phone, she understood, that state. So regulation means connectedness. I am in connection with what I'm feeling, and I'm able to create space for it. Whether that is rage, whether if I see a lion and I'm like, "Arr," like, if I see a lion, that's not the time to activate my petter instinct, like, oh, lovely furry animal. That's dissociation. Are you kidding? It's going to eat you alive, and he's not going to think about you like, you're a lovely human. Let me not eat Tammy. That's the time to run, right? So regulation is about understanding our emotional state. A lot of people don't even understand emotion. They don't even know what anxiety is. They don't even, so emotional labeling, again, if I'm going elementary and ABCs with my clients who are coming to find themselves, because if you don't even know what anxiety is, you don't even know what depression is, you don't know what sadness is, you don't know all of these things, how are you supposed to be connected? How are you supposed to do all of the things that, we're talking, how are you supposed to know who you are? So labeling, understanding the different emotions and how they show up for you, that's the ABCs of regulation. That as a human being, you will feel it all of it, shame, guilt, sadness, you will feel it all. And starting with that acceptance of I am human for feeling, right? And so knowing when I'm feeling sad, being able to sort of say, I'm feeling sad, I'm feeling depressed or whatever feeling, like I'm feeling excited, I'm feeling happy, so knowing those feelings and being able to connect with them. And knowing when you're not feeling something that you're supposed to be feeling, because another part is like, what, people are telling me, like, when my boss humiliated me, in front of like my colleagues, and I'm like, were you angry with that? Because as I'm hearing this, I'm angry for you. That's not right. You don't deserve that. No, I don't get angry. I don't get angry. Why don't you get angry? Because that's the only emotion that would protect you. Even if you don't sort of kind of like go lashing out, I want you to know that you're feeling like in this day, I'm feeling angry. Like how you react to that anger doesn't matter. But you not being able to tell me that you're angry about someone humiliating you and saying you don't get angry, that's dysregulation. Anger is missing because anger is the only emotion that would protect you in that instance. However you react to it, it would be valid if you sort of, reacted and communicated that if you walked out of the room, if how it would make sense than you laughing when you're being humiliated. Right? It will make sense than you joining your oppressor and saying, ha 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 ha, yeah, I'm so stupid. That's dysregulation. So regulation is a state of understanding, accepting, and being connected in connection with our emotion.
Yeah, it's something that I think a lot of us we have this expectation. I literally had a conversation with somebody about it, how we think that for us to be aligned, fulfilled, we have to feel good.
Mm,
Um, or even like when it comes to like with this person we were talking specifically about goal pursuit.
mm-hmm.
When you chase big goals, when you take big steps or you do something you haven't done,
Yeah,
it probably won't feel good. It's not
yeah,
familiar. It's not something
yeah,
that you
yeah,
know.
yeah,
And I think it's a lot of this is just it could also be changing our relationship with emotions and what
yeah,
we like for me there was a time when I think I would look at like even like crying.
yeah.
Crying is a big one. Where I was like, oh, like crying is weak, this and that. Now I'm like, a good example is last year I got so I joined the amateur league here with basketball.
Mm-hmm.
I'm super excited. It's been 10
Yeah,
years since I was playing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't wait.
yeah,
Um, and uh, and on we have the game on Sunday,
yeah.
and on Tuesdays during the practice, I got bad ankle
y-
injury. I
Right.
knew it's bad. I knew I'm
Mm-hmm.
out for at least few months.
Yeah.
And I was like, even at the end of the practice, we usually play basketball, and the
Mm-hmm.
coach was like, "Can you join?" I'm like, "Nah, I'm done. I'm
Mm-hmm.
done.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
know it. I had something
Yeah.
similar with my other ankle those 10+ years ago, so I know it's bad."
Yeah.
And as I got home, even on the way home, I could like feel how little me is like sad about it because I
Mm-hmm.
was like
Mm-hmm.
I was so excited, I was so looking forward to it,
Mm-hmm.
and also I'm letting my team down because
Yeah.
I'm pretty much like the leader of the team,
Yeah.
and I was like, oh, and it's the first game and like the whole thing, and as I got home, I just literally sat down and I grieved. I was going through that sadness, I was crying, and I was usually the way I describe it is that the way I look at crying now is that there's
Mm-hmm.
emotion coming out. And
Yeah.
it's usually I'm crying and I'm like, okay, is there anything else? Okay, let's cry a bit more. Anything else?
Yeah.
Okay, a bit more.
Yeah.
Kind of just like I let it out and I don't
Yeah.
get attached to it because I remember
Yeah.
there was years ago, I lived in when I was living in UK.
Yeah.
I remember there was one moment where I don't remember what triggered it, but I was crying. And it's like
Mm-hmm.
I would have this visual where I have all these like dark demonistic thoughts that are looping around me.
Yeah.
And what would happen when I would catch one of them, now I attach to it. I listen to that story. It makes the sadness even stronger. And now I cry
Yes.
even more and I feel even worse. It's kind of like attached to all these, you're not good enough, you're this, you're whatever would come up. And then I realized that if I don't do that, if I just observe them and allow
Mhm.
that emotion to pass, I'm
Yeah.
actually not there that long. That's
Mhm.
firstly.
Mhm.
Secondly, it just goes away and I can move on with
Yeah.
my day. I
Yeah.
have a bit
Yeah.
puffy eyes from the crying,
Mhm.
but like other than that, I'm good to
Yeah.
go on with my day.
Yeah.
And that was a really interesting experience because
Mhm.
I was like, okay, I just need to release it, whatever it is
Mhm.
that I need
Mhm.
to release.
Mhm.
And sometimes even like at the beginning of the of 70.3 Ironman when I was training for that one, um, during the first week I was in the gym and out of nowhere, and I'm really good at scanning my body and seeing if there's like any triggers, anything. Out of nowhere, I'm sitting in leg press and I just feel like crying. And I'm like, okay. And I'm like, okay, what's the reason? Is there anything
Mhm.
coming up? No. Anything triggered? Gym anxiety? No, nothing. Okay. And then I was like, maybe it just be like some old emotions coming up.
Stuff.
And I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, hold that thought. Let me finish my workout. Then I'm gonna get home. then I
Mhm.
then I gotta cry it out, which I
Yeah.
did. And the
Yeah.
next day I was good. Even the
Yeah.
not the next day, that
Mhm.
evening, I was
Mhm.
good. And
Mhm.
but it's interesting that before I would be like, "What's in there?" But
Mhm.
sometimes there's actually nothing there. It's
Mhm.
just
Mhm.
emotion coming up.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
one of my mentors said me that it actually makes sense because through that prep, I would
Yeah.
exercise so much more. I would train like
Mm.
20 hours
Mhm.
a week.
Mhm.
So there's a lot that can come
Yeah.
out because
Yeah.
body keeps the score.
The body keeps the
and
score. There's energy that
and
needs to move.
yeah, and it's not like every emotion always has
Yeah.
some story. Like in my
Mhm.
like injury, I know
Yeah.
that it was like there was like trigger and it wasn't even a trigger. It was just like
Mhm.
I was going through that sadness of
Mhm.
like, oh, I so wanted. But
Mhm.
if I would be like, no, you have to be tough, it's like, I mean, I don't
Mhm.
feel good, so I might as
Mhm.
well just
Mhm.
sit with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let myself feel it instead of just like suppressing it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
even that in itself, like there was a time that I would be like, I can't do that.
Mhm. Mhm.
Or it's not allowed, it's weak
Mhm.
or
Mhm.
whatever. But it's like it's just emotion, it's human
Yes.
experience.
Yes. Yeah. It's having that
And
radical
it doesn't mean
yeah.
anything about me.
It's having that radical acceptance that you're human and you would feel
Uh,
emotion. A lot of people still fight that. Society tells us we shouldn't feel. We should only, society has confused emotional, positivity with emotional truth. And that's not
uh,
right. Like, that like, oh, it has to be positive and, that's the truth. No, no, every emotion is valid. Every emotion. And that's why we don't create enough space for grief. People who are grieving, they struggle to fit into this society because we expect them to be over it. And we're all grieving in one way or another. We all have grief, whatever it is, whether it's a real loss of someone or a loss of transition, loss of goals, dreams.
it
So
even could
yeah,
be like a loss of potential of
potential.
something.
Yeah, yeah. There's a lot of grief, like we can't do life without that. So we have to have a radical, like, your emotional truth isn't emotional positivity. It's accepting what comes for you and what that is like for you. And how I feel sadness will be different to how someone else feels sadness. My anger used to turn to sadness.
Mm,
Yes. I had to learn, I had to purposely create space for anger.
I'm
My
exactly the same.
yeah,
I
my
For
my
me,
anger
anger is
used to
not allowed. I'm
no,
the
not allowed.
peacemaker. I
Yeah,
can be sad, but I
yeah,
can't be mad.
yeah. I can be so happy,
Yeah.
I can be so happy and so joyous and no, but anger, no, it would turn to sadness, it would turn to sadness. And I need to be sad. I need to be angry about this, like, and I had to like, what are the things that you're angry about? How did they wrong you? I have to ask those questions in order to give that anger a voice. You know, I would talk it out loud. I'm a journaler. I journal. I talk it out loud in the car. I'm talking to myself like, yeah, yeah. And when I let it out and I give it space, then I'm thinking, what do you need? What does this part of me need? How do we move with this? Do we need to speak to that person? Do we need, and sometimes I can't get the answer, but I need to keep asking it. Eventually I do get the answer. Now that is regulation. Before I would ignore it. I'd ignore it. I'd suppress it. It didn't go anywhere. Didn't go anywhere. Did not go anywhere. So emotional regulation is not feel isn't not having emotions, or being neutral with it, or being calm with it. That's not what we're saying. It makes sense to be outraged by outrageous stuff. It makes sense to be sad by sad stuff. It made sense. It makes so much sense to be scared about scary stuff. Because why the hell not? Right? Parenting practices, I've always said, oh, like I was reading something in 2025 to say that, like, if you go out with your child and you say no to them about something they want from the store and they cry or they yell and they're frustrated, they're spoiled. I'm thinking, what am I supposed to do with my toddler? That's his job to be frustrated by me saying no. It's my job to say no. It's his job to be frustrated by that. I'm going to give him a passage and, let him have that frustration. Let him learn that, yeah, he can be frustrated, but, it doesn't mean being frustrated doesn't mean you get what you want. That's how he learns, right? That's how you can't regulate emotions you don't allow yourself to have. You cannot regulate an emotion that you don't allow yourself to have. And we're asking children to be regulated about emotions we're not allowing them to have. We're asking them to regulate emotions that we are not regulating ourselves because we just want to be calm. We just,
Or we don't allow ourselves to have.
Yeah. How do you can't. The more I allow my anger, the more I'm able to work with it, regulate. And by the part of the regulating is allowing it. So then I can sort of I'm better now with the anger. I'm better now, it doesn't sort of it doesn't catch me as off guard. And when it does, I'm like, okay, that's the way it is. Like when my child was having a seizure, I was scared, angry, I was throwing everything out there. Like, just send an ambulance and, don't let this child die. So how do you regulate? You can't regulate an emotion you don't allow yourself to have. We can't teach children regulation about emotions we don't allow them to. He needs to know that, yeah, you can get frustrated about things that don't go his way, but that doesn't mean I'm going to give you the sweet that you're asking for. I'll drag you out with that, sit in your car and let it out. Okay, so you were mad and then, it's calm, it's zen, I can soothe him. And yeah, it makes sense that you're frustrated about not having, but you can't. That's the learning. Like, you can't have things. This is why you can't have it. So there's a learning.
Could it also be with, even like with this example with kid being frustrated, that it's partly parents in some way shutting down their emotions because they're not comfortable with giving them that
Yeah.
space to actually
Yeah.
feel those emotions? Because I
Yeah.
think one thing is to feel emotions, but when it comes to the interaction with others, I think so many of us, we're not familiar or comfortable with our emotions, so we
Mm-hmm.
struggle to give space to
To other
others
people. Yeah.
to
Yeah.
express and feel their emotions.
Absolutely. You're right. And also sort of feeling shame or feeling like you're being judged by other people. There's something that I still
Yeah.
feel because I care about what other people still think about my child. And I have to be working through that. Okay, I'm not going to shut my child down because I'm feeling self-conscious. That's my crap. That's my crap.
Mm.
You see? So that's why it's important, again, healing yourself and at least embarking on that healing journey whilst you're raising another human so we can break the cycle, because otherwise we continue that cycle and that
Yep.
child will inherit that shame and they would also learn to shut down and they will pass that on to their kids. And and that's why the world is in the state that it's in. Our society is so fragmented, it's so disconnected, it's disjointed, it's filled with war. It's not going to be a better place
Yeah.
if we don't, when we heal ourselves, we heal other people, we contribute to other people's healing.
All right. The last question I have for you is since this has been like so valuable, I feel like we barely scratched the surface. What is the impossible you're chasing now?
What's the what?
Impossible you're chasing now.
That I'm chasing. Oh, what's the impossible that I'm chasing? Am I chasing anything impossible? What's the impossible that I'm chasing now? What's the impossible that I'm chasing now? What's the impossible? What's the impossible that I'm chasing? I don't know. I don't know that I'm chasing anything impossible. I can tell you that, I figuring out, staying with the things that I can't figure out. So, I am in this state, I love doing the things that I know how to do, right? But
Relatable.
I'm trying to sort of get into the zone of things that I don't know what to do. I keep getting stuck in my similar pattern of going back to just the things that I know how to do and not try something new out. So, I'm trying to create courses so that like other people can access my
Ooh,
services. Because not everyone can afford therapy is very expensive. I'm trying to create free resources as well for people and talk about things, and it's very hard to talk about trauma and healing from trauma because it's such a interactional, it's a relational experience, and it's really, I find it really difficult when people ask me what simple step can people take, and there are simple steps, but a lot of healing happens in sort of, we can't measure it. I don't even,
yeah.
sometimes my client tell me, is this one thing that stuck for them, or is this thing that we did? And, I hate it that people are selling healing and, kind of like, "Oh, if you do this, it's a lie in a lot of ways because, everyone's healing journey is different. So I find that really difficult, but I'm also trying to be mindful that I don't want to be, you know, rigid in my thought process. But my brain is wired to just do the things that it knows to do and divert away from things that it's not comfortable with. And so it's out of reach for my mind, but I'm aware of it and I'm pacing myself. But I find that I keep going back to the things that once I master something, that's what I will do. And the tasks that are sort of kind of like harder for me to do, I won't do them. I won't do them. And I get lost. And so I have to like anchor myself again and then find clarity. And I've done well, but I'm not where I want myself to be or I need to be. So, like over the
Embracing the
last
new.
year, yeah, I created my Instagram. I didn't like Instagram. I didn't like social media. I love to exist like outside of social media. So, my Instagram is a year old. My LinkedIn is a year old. My YouTube is a year old. And I always remind myself that you've done that. Like even though you've not, I've not really, I'm yet to talk about anything on my Facebook, on my YouTube page. I'm yet to really like record. I've put meditations there that my current clients, they use that resource outside of therapy session. I post a lot on my Instagram. I mastered that. So I do that because I've mastered that. But like there are other things that I want to do, like my course. I want to create a course on emotional regulation. I want to create a course on compassion and on self-criticism. So
Mm,
those are the courses that I want to create for people because those are the anchors. Those are the three areas of being able to get on, embark on that journey of self. Compassion. Often when we are disconnected, we're very critical because we've inherited all this judgment that you and I talked about, and where there is shame, there is self-criticism, and emotional regulation because a lot of us just did not get that within our earlier relationship. So those are the courses that I want to create, but I have to learn things because they weren't things that I was taught in my psychology school either. I am not very business minded, so a lot of newness. So that's the impossible. My mind says it's impossible, but that's my sort of my emotional mind says it's impossible, but I also know like everything is figure outable. My wise mind
yep.
knows that everything is figure outable, and you just have to find support and and be a student. So I have to be a learner. So every now and then I get lost, like I'm lost right now. One of the reasons why I came to this today is because it's one of my goals. I said I want to get more experience of being on camera, and I could have canceled because I'm tired. And I said no, no, the
Nice.
opportunity is there. And like you said, you're going to have a good chat. I've met her before, so those pep talk came into it. And I'm glad that I'm here, talking to you. So everything is figure outable. Like emotionally, our emotions will block us, but I just know like when I sit back down again and I put pen to paper, I can sort of kind of create little goals and set little goals for myself. And then move in that direction. If I get lost again, I will set little goals, and yeah, I think that's what I'm in that sort of kind of like transaction with my mind all the time.
Love it. Love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Dr. Tammy, for coming on and the
Thanks for having me.
endless wisdom that you shared with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you having me.